Hello, everyone. I'm Austin Belzer from Austin B Media, and welcome to my interview with director Yuriko Gamo Romer and baseball legend Masanori Murakami, the first Japanese player in Major League Baseball. Their documentary, Diamond Diplomacy, beautifully explores how baseball became a bridge between Japan and the United States. It's a heartfelt reflection on culture, identity, and connection through sports. Thank you both for joining me today. How are you?
We're good. Thank you for having us.
Good. Hopefully, it hasn't been too long of a day of interviews. So,
No,
um,
today actually we got a baseball tour of Hot Springs,
ooh,
which is
nice.
once upon a time in Babe Ruth's time, they had spring training down here. So we got to wander around and see all the points of interest and where certain people played and we got to see the home plate where Babe Ruth hit the first recorded longest home run. I think he said it was 578 feet. And then they were talking about how the ball landed inside some alligator ponds. And it turns out that those same alligator ponds are still there today. So we got to go see the alligators in the alligator ponds where the ball dropped.
And is that Hot Springs, Arkansas, or somewhere else?
Hot Springs, Arkansas. That's
Oh,
it.
okay. I've been there. In fact, I went there last year. They have this little fountain where everyone. It's funny. Last time I was there, there was this guy who came in a car with like a gallon water jug and just filled the thing with hot spring water.
Yep. We were there
But
this morning.
but that's cool. I need to go back there. Anyways, that's not hot springs are not what we're here to talk about. Although I probably could. Um, so I first things first. I guess the most obvious thing out of the way. What Yuriko? What first inspired you to tell this story, and what did you see in Mashi's journey that maybe transcended sports?
Well, in the very beginning, it was a friend of mine's father, Con Dempsey, had pitched for the San Francisco Seals, and the Seals were the minor league team in California before the majors came out. And in 1949, General MacArthur, post World War II, during the Allied occupation, sent the San Francisco Seals to Japan as a goodwill tour. And I saw a museum exhibit about that, and I was really actually quite surprised that such a wonderful thing had happened and hardly anybody knows about it. So I got Dave to dig up his father's home movies, and that was the instigation of this as a film. But then I started doing research and realized very quickly that the history was much longer, much deeper, and it had to be a bigger film. So then it was, I don't know, maybe a couple years later that the San Francisco Giants were celebrating the 50th anniversary of Mashi coming to pitch, being the first Japanese player for the major leagues. And I had an opportunity to film for that, and that's how I met Mashi, and that was sort of the beginning of production for the film. And it was sort of an immediate thing that he had this lovely personality and great stories and the idea that he was this young boy at 19 that came to the United States and was suddenly playing baseball first in the minor leagues and then he got called up for the major leagues and it was a fascinating story. So we were off and running.
Yeah, it actually while I was watching it, another baseball documentary. I don't know if you watch a lot of baseball documentaries, but I really liked a one from last year. Sorry, that's my dog. Um, from Magnolia Pictures, the league. Watching this reminded me a lot of that. But Mashi, going to you, I want to springboard uh, off of what Yuriko said and talk about when you first arrived in the United States to play for the MLB. Uh, what was that experience like emotionally and culturally for you?
So just to correct that, he first came and played in the minor leagues. So he didn't play for the
Apologies.
major. So I don't know if you want the initial experience when he came and played for the minors, or
Let's do
what's the
minors
actual
first.
question?
Let's
Okay.
do minors first.
最初にアメリカに来て、マイナーリーグの、フレズノに行って、マイナーリーグの野球をやってた時は、どういう印象があって、何を覚えてますかって。
まだ、言葉があんまりできなかったんだけどね。でも、シーズンが始まって、もうゲームになると、日本も、こっちも、アメリカも一緒だから、私は、クローザーになって、マイナーでね、ずっとやってたから、ある時、ゲームが、ワンサイドのゲームになって、投げる機会が5日ぐらいなかった時に、もう、ピッチングしたくて、ブルペンのところに行って、ピッチングしてたら、ビル・ワール監督が、ダメだっつって、明日からもっと毎日投げるかもしれないから、休んどけと言ったんだけど。
ちょっとこれ訳さないと。So he said that when he first came and was sent to the minor leagues, he could hardly speak English at all. So, it was tough because he couldn't communicate. But once the game started, of course, baseball is baseball, and he was fine with that. And they kind of assigned him to be the closer. And, that means he pitches at the very end of a close game. And he said that there were times when the game was very one-sided and going the wrong direction, and he really wanted to jump in and pitch, to help. And he would go to the manager and kind of indicate that he wanted to pitch. And the manager would say to him, no, we can't just throw you in today because we're going to need you tomorrow and the next day, and you need to rest today. で、あとは。
ちょっとその前に言いたかったことがある。
はい。
こちらに来た時にね、給料くれなかったのが一番、最初のマーチと、エイプリルは、一週間だけね、ワンウィークだけくれたことと、シーズンの、フレズノに来て、シーズンの始まる前に、クラブハウスで、マネージャーのビル・ワールが、ボックスをね、4つ持ってきてね、これをつって何か言ったのよね。そしたら選手がもう行って、それでユニフォームを、こう着てね、このサイズ OK って、ね。
はいはい。
そしたら私は、わからない、まだ言葉わからないから、ただもう最後になったら選手が、You と言ったら、って言ったら、ユニフォームが、4枚か5枚あって、ここ来て、ホームティームス、アウェイティームね、ビジターティームス。で、それを、あったんだけど、日本では、毎年、新しいユニフォームを、作ってくれるんですよ。ね。でもこっちは、あの頃は、マイナーリーグは、メジャーがトリプル A、ダブル A の古いので、私のユニフォームは、ホームゲームがナンバー6で、アウェイがナンバー8だった。
So, okay, so this is a big difference from number one today and also culturally from Japan. He said when he first got there, the big differences were that in Japan, I think they pay the young players a regular salary, even if it's not that much, they're paid regularly. And he said that one of the big differences was that here they don't start getting paid until the season starts. So that was a little bit of a shock because he didn't really understand that. But more important than that, again, he said he hardly spoke the language. He doesn't really understand what's going on. And this is in the minor leagues, and the manager shows up with a bunch of boxes and puts them on the floor, and all the teammates are going there and they're pulling uniforms out of the boxes and they're running off. And, one of the teammates said, "Hey, you got to go in there and grab a uniform." So he goes in there and he sees, 3 or 4 uniforms left, and he grabs, there's one uniform for home games and one uniform for away games. And he said it was at the end of, there were only a few left, and so he ended up that the home games he was number 6 and the away games he was number 8. And he was commenting that in Japan at the beginning of the season each player would get a new uniform that was assigned to them and handed to them. And when you start to think about it compared to today, I mean, that's completely insane because even the minor leaguers don't end up in this situation. And he was saying that those boxes of uniforms were basically leftover old uniforms from probably he was playing in single A, so probably from the double A teams or maybe the triple A.
6番、島言った。
言った。
Yeah, and I guess talking about that, transitioning from minor to major league. Obviously, we just talked about single A to triple A, and then you go to the major leagues. I would love to hear about what that transition was like to that and going to his time with the San Francisco, I believe Giants was the team name at the time.
Yep. じゃあ、最初にマイナーからメジャーに行った時の印象を話してください。
うん。メジャーに行くということを言われて、オーガスト31のね、フレズノからサンフランシスコに行って、で、ニューヨークのジョン・フ・ケネディ行って、ホテルね、に行ったんだけど、誰も迎えに来てくれない。日本だったら迎えに来てくれるんだけど、私はやっと言葉をちょっと覚えただけで、で行って、ホテルに行って、チェックインしようとしたら、フロントの男の子がメンバー表を見て、お前の名前はないって言ったんで、もうホテルのロビーで荷物持って、こうやって、20分ぐらいね、考えてた。どうしたらいいかなと思って、いろんな悪いことももう、明日の朝、もうハドソンリバーで私はもう死んでるんじゃないかななんて思ったこともありましたね。
So he says that when he was called up from the minor leagues to the major leagues, he was pretty much told at the very last minute. The manager came in and said, "You're going to pitch for us for the Giants." So basically, he was handed an airplane ticket, and the day before, like August 31st, he was to fly to New York, and he had to ask around, find out which airplane to get on. Then he gets there to JFK Airport, and he has to ask around to find out which bus to get on to go to the hotel. He gets to the hotel and he goes to the front desk to check in, and they don't have his name. So he's not sure what to do because he's by himself. There's no escort. This is another one of those things where not only is it a cultural thing, but today this would never happen. So he's at the hotel in New York City, and he's just sitting there in the lobby, just sort of in a daze, like, what the heck do I do? And he said he sat there for probably a good 20 minutes thinking that, tomorrow morning he was going to be on the streets or in the Hudson River because he doesn't know what to do. And I know finally someone showed up, or the manager came, but that's how he went from the minors to the majors. That was his introduction.
Yeah, I appreciate that you talking about that, Mashi. I'm going to try not to retread some of the stuff that the documentary already touches on. So, Yuriko, I want to go back to you. Yeah, obviously we talked about the inspiration, but I want to go a little deeper into the melding of historical research, archival storytelling, and modern interviews, fusing those three things, how you balance those three things to give the film its emotional core.
Well, it's always a tough thing to edit together a film, any film, but especially when you're trying to cover 150 years of history. So yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, so part of it was I knew from the beginning that I was going to have to try and edit these things together. I had modern day interviews, but they were talking about things that happened in the not too distant past. And then we had stuff that was going on where the players and the characters were no longer alive, and it was going to be reliant on old footage, old photographs, and how are we going to be able to tell the history in a way where it flows together and gets edited into a film. So there were a couple places where in the interviews we talked about the history and what they knew about it and what kind of things that they had observed sort of from the learning of those pieces of history, and that helped. And then also there was the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo. They put together an exhibition of photographs, historical photographs of basically the history of US Japan baseball. And I did help consult on sort of sourcing some of that stuff, but more importantly, it was kind of it went through history in the similar kind of way that where I was doing the research. So we went in and filmed the opening of the exhibition, and I got to photograph or film the hanging of the exhibition, but I also got some of my historians and also Warren Cromartie, who was a player that went from the US to Japan, and we got them talking about some of the points of history where the photographs were hanging on the walls. And those kinds of things help to bring together sort of the present, the not too long ago past, and the way long ago past. And of course, when you start talking about the 1800s, that is the toughest because there's hardly any photos and certainly no movie footage. And I did rely a little bit on Japanese woodblock prints, which is kind of the way they were recording history at that point. So that was a nice way to sort of have a different element come into the film.
Yeah, and you talk about going as far back as the 1800s, and I I wonder this a lot with documentaries. When you go that far back, it's like, is the material even, what would be the word, salvageable anymore? Like, did you ever run into any obstacles that way, where something was so damaged where you couldn't use the archival material?
Well, the issue is mostly about the archival material not existing. Um, there's one photograph in there where it's just I use the photograph where you see the Japanese team is all standing there with kimono on, which is, not a very comfortable thing to be running around in and throwing balls and all that stuff. But that's what they were wearing. And that particular photograph, I got access to it through the Baseball Hall of Fame in Tokyo, and they kept saying someone might have a higher resolution copy of this. And we kept looking, and we never found it. So you see that image, and it's a little fuzzy and not so sharp, but you do get that that's who's standing there. So, we had situations like that. We ran across a few photos that had been damaged, but of course, there's the magic of retouching. So, like if the photo had a crack in it, we can usually kind of at least make it reasonably nice so that you can see the images and the people and stuff. But there's
Yeah, go ahead.
no AI in the film. Just want to put that out there.
That's a uh, fair thing to point out, because that is something that a lot of people are concerned about. And yeah, yeah. Um, and I guess moving a little bit away from archival, and away from the edit even. How did you two approach working together, and what did you learn through the process of telling his story, Mashi's story?
I have interviewed him a couple of times over the last decade. We're also both quite good friends with the writer, the biographer who wrote the English biography of his life. And we've actually ended up sort of traveling together and ending up in places, speaking on panels and that kind of thing. So I think over that length of time, we've certainly gotten to know each other, and I've gotten to understand some of the nuances of the stories. And I know the one thing that was very important to me was that he loved being in the United States and playing here. He would have loved to have stayed longer. He felt he had made a big commitment and promise to the manager in Japan, and that he needed to go back there. But that set up a kind of a regret, maybe a disappointment, like that he didn't get to continue playing here. So this was something that I knew was a quandary and a difficult issue in his life. And so it was important for me to try and bring that out in a way that I understood it. And I understood it well over knowing him over a decade.
Yeah, and I guess bouncing off of that, you know, we're seeing a large number of Japanese baseball players now. I guess I don't know why none are coming to name right now. It must be interview jitters. But
Okay, Otani.
that's what came to mind first. But yes, Shohei Otani is one of them. I just want to ask Mashi, how does it feel to see your legacy celebrated through Diamond Diplomacy, this film?
こんな映画を見て、マッシーさんの自分の話が歴史に残るっていうのはどういう気持ちかしらって。
私としてはね、本当にね、こんなことがあるとは思わなかったし、やっぱりアメリカの人たちというかね、もちろん日系人もそうなんだけど、大変に歴史を大切にするという国ということでは、素晴らしいなと思う。日本の方がまだ昔のね、有名な選手でもね、もう子供たちは全然知らない。でも、アメリカは、その選手たちを子供たちが知ってるということは、やっぱり、大人の人が、そういう歴史を伝えていくということが素晴らしくて、私もこちらに来たときに、日本では、今はだんだん私のことを知ってきたけど、もう10年、20年前には、そんな人いたのっていう、そういうことだったから、アメリカは素晴らしいなと思いますね。
So he says that he didn't understand that this project was going to end up in a film quite as big as this, and he's always teasing me that I didn't tell him, but so I think he's pleased that it's kind of a bigger film than he expected. But the comment that he makes on top of that is that in Japan there is less of an appreciation for the history of baseball, and he has a great appreciation for American baseball fans and American culture, sort of revering the past and the heroes from the past. And I mean, this, like, the broadcasters often bring up, oh, we just saw this guy hit the 35th home run, and that reminds me of Babe Ruth in XYZ year. So he says in Japan they don't do that. And so, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, there were hardly anybody knew who he was. And he says maybe a few more people know who he is now. And I mean, I certainly hope that after the film gets released in Japan, that more and more people will know who he is and also appreciate the kind of history that brought international baseball and US Japan baseball to where it is today.
Yeah, you, you bring up a good point. I think it's important that when this gets Japanese distribution, that it gets seen as well. I didn't think of that off the top of my head, but that's a great thing to point out. And I guess my next question, I'll move. Either one of you can answer this because we're kind of moving towards that question anyway. I would love to hear what either of you hope audiences take away about the role baseball has played in bridging cultural divides.
Well, for me, I think it's the themes of this film are relevant to more than just baseball. I think we're in a difficult time when there seems to be more division in the world than cohesiveness, peace between nations, friendship. So if people can see something, a story, a history that goes over a century and looks at all the difficult things that happened and but still sees that you can come through it and maintain a friendship, restore a friendship, have two countries, two peoples. It's people to people diplomacy. People to people diplomacy, I think, is a very important factor in making people understand each other's cultures and bring the world closer together. ドキュメンタリーを見て、皆さん見た人にはどういう印象を残したいかって聞いてるの。
多分私のプレーを今の人たちは見てない、知らないね。うん。でも多分アメリカのベースボールを好きな人は、今は大谷が活躍してるんだけど、その昔には、村上が、マシがプレイしたよっていうようなことを、時々放送の中でもやってるんじゃないかと思うんですよ。だからそういうことで、今回映画ができた中に私が入ってて、それを見てまた、こういうプレイヤーだったのかというのがね、改めて、分かったんじゃないかなと。私としては非常に嬉しいことでね、11年前に、孫がね、来た、50の時に、私はファーストピッチして、孫が来て、映像を見た時に本当に嬉しかった。うん。
So he says that personally, he hopes that people will come away sort of understanding that he's part of this history and maybe knowing who he is a little bit more than they had. And he brings this up where there's a scene in the film where he's throwing the first pitch at the Giants game. And after the pitch, his grandson comes running onto the field and he goes over there and picks his grandson up, who is like 2 or 3 years old at that point. And there's a moment there where Lucille, the mascot, comes over and they touch hands. And he says that for him is an extremely touching moment that makes him happy.
Yeah, and that's got to be a treasured moment. I would think, and I want to thank you both Yuriko and Mashi, for joining me. Where can people catch Diamond Diplomacy?
Well, so tomorrow night it's playing here in Hot Springs, Arkansas at 5 o'clock. Then it will be actually the best thing to do is to go on to the website diamonddiplomacy.com. And there is a pull down there that lists all the screenings that are scheduled, and we'll continue to update that as we go. As of now, we don't have a distribution plan yet. We're in the festival circuit, so hopefully we'll have a couple more of those come up. And somewhere down the line, if people want to be made aware of things, the best thing to do is go to the website and sign up for the newsletter, because we can keep people posted of what's going on.
We'll make sure all those links are in the description of the interview. Thank you both again. It's been a true honor to speak to you both. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
And my dog does too, apparently. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.